Okay, thank you everyone who have joined us today on Monday, August 2nd for our monthly webinar. Today we're joined by Sheila Moore, who will be talking about an introduction to mindfulness. Sheila Moore is a licensed clinical social worker, and she's worked in the field since 1988. She joined us at the Pacific Brain Health Center and Pacific Neuroscience Institute to provide psychosocial services in a patient-centered care environment. We're very lucky to have her as a provider of support and education to patients and their families, helping them regain a sense of control and increase their ability to cope. Sheila offers counseling, assessment, and referrals to community-based programs. She is the information and referral coordinator for the American Parkinson Disease Association in collaboration with our Pacific Movement Disorder Center. And we're excited to have her speak today about mindfulness. Take it away.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Petrosian. And thank you, Dr. Diaz, sharing our panel today. And thank you to everyone who's participating. I'm really very pleased to be here this afternoon to talk about mindfulness and to really offer an introduction within the frame of the power of everyday awareness, which is an important tool, and we'll be talking about that particularly when, for any of us at this particular time and an extraordinary point in our existence, but also as we just get through our day mindfully and hopefully compassionately. And so I'm going to hopefully talk about that today. So by way of welcome, I would like to use a quote from Jon Kabat-Zinn, who really is the father of mindfulness-based stress reduction, and really how I have been launched on my own path of mindfulness. This quote is, "Just watch this moment without trying to change it at all. What is happening? What do you feel? What do you see? What do you hear?" And I think in those few words, he sums up the importance and the power of mindfulness. Being present in the moment, having a powerful tool of awareness as we get through our day. So I understand that when there are webinars, and we'll talk a little bit about this coming up in my presentation, but we kind of live in an age of multitasking. And so I don't know with the webinar, people are probably doing other things, but I'm going to invite you, wherever you are and however you're listening to this, to get settled in. Let's start our experience of awareness by settling in this afternoon. Just to take a moment, just to get centered where you are, to get a sense of where you are in the room, where you're listening. Perhaps you're outside or inside, what's going on around you. Get comfortable. Get comfortable in your space. And find the sweet spot of awareness. So as I'm sitting here, kind of taking in awareness, I'll also invite you to just get a sense, just take a look. You don't have to close your eyes if you don't like to. Really, the awareness is about increasing our awareness, increasing our field and our scope. What are the colors of the walls? What's happening in your space? What might you overlook on a daily basis that's right in front of you that is worthy of some attention? What are you hearing? Is there a fan? I have a fan in the background, so I'm hearing that. I could look outside and see some plants. I see the sun shining on the pavement. Take a moment, getting comfortable, finding the sweet spot of awareness is what we're going to be talking about today. So I've used this slide before if you were here when I spoke on resilience, but I love this slide. So for this hour, we'll be exploring mindfulness, not mindful, F-U-L-L, but mindfulness. So mindfulness is really about paying attention. It's about cultivating, nurturing awareness in a non-judging, compassionate way. It's paying attention in the present moment with kindness. So Joseph Goldstein, who is also another kind of giant in the world of mindfulness, says, this is his quote, "A cat is totally living in the moment, yet is actually not mindful because she's not aware of it. In order to be mindful, we have to be conscious of our awareness." So we can, like that slide before, where it was mindful, F-U-L-L, and the person was thinking about 1,000,001 different things, which I think is par for where most of us are. And the dog, or the feline here, is mindful, like just the slide, it kind of indicates that they're mindful, but really they are in kind of living in the moment, but don't have the awareness, which is the extra piece of mindfulness. So during this hour, I'm hoping that we can talk about what is mindfulness, a little bit about the science of mindfulness, because I think that's very important. Talking about what the benefits of mindfulness are or can be, and how can we live, how can all of us live more mindfully, which is very powerful for any of us. So when, I was thinking about mindfulness, I was thinking of all the ways that prior to really having a practice, I used the word mindful. Like we think of it, and mindfulness is kind of everywhere right now. Mindfulness is kind of a catchphrase, catch-all. And I'm wondering, when you've heard mindfulness, if you have a mindfulness practice, or what you think about when you hear the word mindful. And I'm wondering what you might have thought about what this afternoon's webinar might be about. What's Sheila going to say about mindfulness? How can this apply to me as someone who's been diagnosed with Parkinson's disease? How can this apply specifically to me and how I get through my day? So I really feel like we have biases. We have our own biases, our own ideas, and our own past experience that kind of influence and inform how we all think today about mindfulness. And I know certainly that my practice has really influenced and changed the way I've thought about mindfulness. So I want to make two distinctions, because I think that sometimes we talk about mindfulness, and I think there are really actually two ways of practicing mindfulness. One is on the cushion, as you see this slide, and I put various, because I'm hoping that this is a way of introduction and an invitation and whetting your appetite if you already don't have a meditation practice, but just kind of letting you know that informal practice on the cushion, there are lots of different ways one can do that. One does not have to sit in lotus, right? One can sit in a chair, one can lay down, and one can have a formal meditation practice where one thinks about when one has a different relationship with thoughts and feelings in our bodies on the cushion. And what I'm going to talk today is more about an informal mindfulness practice, which is more in daily life, which we talk about as off the cushion. How do we bring awareness? How do we change our relationships with thoughts? How do we change about our relationships with perhaps some of the symptoms that we have, some of the changes that we have going on in our bodies? How can we bring a mindfulness? How can we bring awareness? How can we bring a different relationship to that? And this slide says a lot about like mindfulness. Well, what is it? It's about, chatting with friends and really listening, smiling on purpose, being really aware of that smile, of breathing, of cloud gazing, really taking a moment, bring awareness to where we are right now. So what is mindfulness? Jon Kabat-Zinn, he defines it as mindfulness as awareness. He talks about it as cultivated by paying attention in a sustained and particular way. In fact, he often talks about it's awareness on purpose. And I think about that, and I think that in the course of the day, and we'll talk about this in just a few minutes, that we're multitaskers, many of us, right? We're doing lots of different things. We have lots going on in our minds. And sometimes we don't necessarily focus our attention, but our attention might be grabbed by a noise, something that changes in the environment, something that changes with us, like our attention gets grabbed rather than us having control in terms of how we focus our attention. It's about awareness in the present moment, and it's about doing it non-judgmentally, which I think is absolutely key when we're talking about bringing awareness to our daily experiences. So mindfulness, the what of mindfulness is its awareness. It's a different king, sorry. I guess attention could be king, but a different kind of attention in our lives. And it's about collecting awareness. One of my meditation teachers, when we talk about sitting on the cushion and bringing our focus to, let's say, our thoughts, for example, he talks about collecting our consciousness, collecting it, because it can go everywhere. And I like to think of that in our daily experiences, collecting our awareness to focus in on what's going on in the present, in the here and now. And I think equally important is how we do that. And I have to say, in my particular practice, that there are lots of things that one can do, lots of experiences one has, but oftentimes it's the self-talk and the attitude that people bring to the experience that can really kind of turn it sideways and really bring make it really challenging. So the how of awareness, the how of mindfulness is with kindness, with self-compassion, and with non-judgment. That really becomes critical. It's so important, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. So again, mindfulness teaches us how to relate to our experiences differently, letting it be just as it is. And Jon Kabat-Zinn says again, which I love, it's not a matter of letting go. You would if you could. Wouldn't we all, if we could just let things go in our daily life, just let it go? We hear that a lot, just let it go, just let it go. But he says instead of letting it go, we should probably say, let it be. Just let it be. Kind of acceptance, just let it be. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that. Sorry, I'm moving this around so I can read my slides. So we're really adding mindfulness to our tool bag. Those of us who have been diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, there's a lot of tools that we have. We have medications, exercise, diet, the things that you hear over and over again, the things that we talk to you over and over again about. And this is another tool. That there was a time, this is from a gentleman that I had a conversation with. He said, there was a time in my life when the only two things I would bring to any issue, any problem I perceived was a pair of running shoes and a hammer. And today I have other tools I use to address my problems. And that really kind of resonated and stuck with me. We have lots of tools that we can bring, tools that we have highly developed and highly, in some ways, habitualized over time, over our lifetime, that we bring to our present day, what happens in the day. And this, I think what this guy was saying was, I bring running shoes. So if it gets too intense for me, if it gets too challenging, I disappear, I run. And, we can run, not only like in terms of literally run in the concrete run, but we can run by doing all kinds of distracting things to distract us from what's going on. I'm not saying that that's necessarily a bad thing, but sometimes it can be a disservice to us. And I think when he talks about the hammer, I think about two things. I think one, he brings an attitude of, I can fix this. I'm going to fix this. And sometimes what we're up against during a day is hard to fix. And if we can't fix it, it leaves us feeling like we failed. So I think that the opportunity of mindfulness and awareness brings a different frame to our experience. And the other way I think about a hammer is I took it initially. I actually have been thinking about what he said, is that we bring the hammer of judgment. And we can really be hard on ourselves. We can really just bring that hammer. And that makes it really hard to get through a day, hard to get through a challenge, hard to not make that challenge that we experience the day our whole day. And so what I'm hoping to talk about in terms of awareness, of bringing our attention, on purpose, bringing our attention to what's going on for ourselves, that we can look back on our day perhaps, or even in the middle of our day, restarting by saying, oh, this is just part of my day. If I have a really broad lens of awareness, what I experience, the challenge that I have now today, like my nervousness in this webinar is not going to last. Like it will be part of my day, but it will be over. I'll relax and I'll move on. It will not be my whole day. Like a whole day I was filled with anxiety. Just for right now, this is a personal example. So to broaden our lens in terms of awareness. So I think of mindfulness as a power tool with Parkinson's disease. And so today I'm hoping to introduce you as someone who's been diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, someone who cares for someone who has Parkinson's disease, as an introduction of bringing awareness as a tool. And I'm actually hoping that it's going to be more of an invitation that I hope to say yes to. The opportunity to bring this new tool, to bring this warm, nurturing, caring tool of awareness to your everyday life and say yes to that, to say yes in terms of having a different frame, of approaching things differently, of having a different relationship with what you might experience. And I have some very concrete examples we'll talk about. And one of the hard things I have in terms of the webinars is that I don't get to see you, and it's really hard. By nature of my work, it's about sharing ideas and watching facial changes. But I'm hoping, and I might even bring some of my own experiences, as I already have here today, as way of an example to illustrate what I'm talking about. And I'm hoping that we can see the power tool of awareness is that it's really in the power of the moment. And whether we're feeling good, particularly if we're feeling good, having an awareness about feeling good helps again to broaden that lens. Say, oh, I really felt good in this particular time. I felt really good. That felt great. Or with the challenging symptoms, like I talked about my own anxiety about this, like it's a challenging symptom that's going to last for a short period of time and then possibly resolve. I possibly won't be quite as anxious as I am, but I might continue to have anxiety. But those challenging symptoms with a broad lens of awareness to the present moment can be very, very powerful, can help put things into perspective for us. And particularly if we bring awareness to anxiety and depression, and we'll talk briefly about the science, but there's been many, many studies done about symptom management and symptom improvement, particularly with anxiety and depression, when one applies mindfulness, present moment awareness. So particularly for mindfulness, for those of us who have ongoing health issues, is particularly powerful. So I'm hoping to tell you the why and the how of bringing awareness and mindfulness to your everyday. And I want to say that I have seen both personally, professionally, and as a witness in my own life, and a witness with the people that I get the great pleasure to work with, that I have seen people apply mindfulness and awareness to sleep and have made a difference, have changed the outcome. I have seen people who have been diagnosed with Parkinson's who are challenged by a tremor apply breathing and awareness and have been able to settle the tremors. I have seen people who have taken a casual and regular walk in the neighborhood find great joy by finding the detail of a bird of paradise in their neighborhood that had googly eyes, that brought great joy, and that was shared among others. So it's the small things. We'll kind of conclude with the importance of the small things in life, but bringing awareness to this present moment that can be a huge power tool for those Parkinson's disease and who have, and really any one of us. So mindfulness awareness. During the course of the day, right, we often might say, where are my keys? Where's my phone? I don't know. I do that all the time. Like, where did I put my phone? I'm always misplacing my phone. Where's that list? I had a list going. It could be a grocery list. It could be a to-do list. Where did I put that? What did I do with my glasses? Like we often, during the course of the day, will ask those questions. But when do we ask, where is my attention? Where is my focus right now? And where and what is my mind settling on? To have kind of a consciousness about, oh, wait a minute, what is my mind settling on? So I'm hoping to give you some tools today to make some changes. So for most of us, our attention and our minds are on autopilot, right? We're going through the motions of the day, eating, driving, even talking. Oftentimes, we're in a hurry. We have lots to do. We might eat just to eat, to satisfy our hunger, fill our bellies so that we can move on with something, but we miss the opportunity to taste what we're eating, to really get a sense of what it was that we just participated in. And driving, I've often found myself getting to my destination and forgetting, like, wait a minute, I didn't pay attention to the last few blocks or that last mile of my drive. Where was my mind? And even talking, isn't it true that sometimes we can talk to people and our minds are already on the second or third thing that we need to be, or thinking about something else, and we're just not present. We're often lost in thought, and our mind is very, very busy. In fact, our mind is full, Full, just like the picture that I had. So when we're lost in thought and our mind is full, is there a cost? And I'd say there is absolutely a cost. We are often disconnected from how our mood affects our bodies and how our physical state affects our mood. And sometimes there are shifts and changes. If we're not aware, we can get sidetracked and things can come out sideways if we lose the opportunity to bring awareness to the day. And I put HALT down there as to remind myself that in some circles, the acronym HALT is to remind ourselves that if we're feeling, if our emotions change suddenly, or we otherwise have had a good day and suddenly we have a bad day, or we're feeling just not quite up to par, that we want to think, are we hungry? Has something made us upset? Are we angry? Are we lonely? Are we tired? I know for one that often fatigue is the first thing that can derail me in terms of my day. I think, wow, I don't really stop to think, oh, you know what? I didn't sleep well last night. Many, many a day, I myself have caught myself thinking, I'm just really tired. It has nothing to do with kind of the bigger picture of my life. Today, I just happened to be tired. I didn't sleep well. So tonight, I'm going to try to go to bed earlier. I mean, it's that simple when we're aware that we can make those changes. And, we carry tension and stress in our bodies without even realizing it. Like when I was sitting here waiting and I was trying to apply my own, what I'm going to be talking to you about and teaching you a little bit about. And I was thinking, like, okay, getting in touch with my breath. And I realized that my shoulders had crept up a little bit, that I was really tight. And that really can add to my feeling of anxiety. So I tried to breathe and relax. So we carry tensions and stress that can absolutely add to our emotional states. And when our mind is full and our thoughts are kind of swirling around, we've got lots going on, we might miss important information. In fact, that might impact our memories if we don't pay attention and gather information so that we can store it and then retrieve it. Like memory is a really important and kind of complex process. If we miss the most important part is gathering the information, if we're distracted, that's an important piece and an important part that awareness can play. And we miss a lot of the positive and pleasant moments, in our daily lives. It might be a loved one's smile, a granddaughter, a child, a kind gesture from a neighbor, or a stranger. And it's a little corny, but how a cool breeze refreshes on a hot day. Just from personal experience, I sit here remotely. I've been working remotely since the pandemic. And sometimes I don't have good air circulation. The other day, I was sitting here warm and this cool breeze, and it was delicious. And because I took a moment to be aware, it was absolutely delicious. And what a relief, to be grateful in that moment for that cool breeze. Or we might miss the faithfulness of a feline or canine companion, which is also delicious. Where our minds could be in terms of all this, I think that that mindful state is a complex one. And sometimes when we are where our minds go is it could go in the past. If we spend too much time here in our past, we might be experiencing feelings of guilt and sadness and worthlessness regret and grief if we spend time thinking about the past. If we spend time in the future, and I often call that future tripping, thinking about what lies ahead. And it might not be next week, it might be a month, it might be years ahead. Sometimes spending too much time here in that future, we might have feelings of stress and worry and anxiety that can derail us, that can fill us, that can distract us. So the present moment becomes critical and key, using mindfulness and grounding ourselves with our senses and returning to our breath, for example, can help connect us to here and now, where we can find peace and calming and clarity and grounding. It's a really very powerful. So when we are mindful, F-U-L-L, we are missing our life as it unfolds moment by moment, missing opportunities to help ourselves, I think. And we can change this by simply introducing mindfulness, this on-purpose awareness. And it only takes a moment and some practice. And it's as simple as shifting your attention to the present moment. And I do say simple, and I underlined it and I italicized it because I think it's simple, but sometimes it's not easy. Sometimes it's not easy. And I really do, when we talk about a mindfulness practice, and we talk about practicing anything to be perfect, which kind of makes me cringe now, because I don't know if there is such a thing as perfection. But if we practice to become more familiar, to become more easy with the process of mindfulness and awareness, it is truly, truly powerful to be in the present moment. So let me talk a little bit about the science of mindfulness. And there could be volumes and hours, and I certainly am by no means an expert in any of this, but I think it's worthy and worth it to spend just a few minutes to talk about all that's being done in research, connecting the power of mindfulness to how our bodies respond to stressors, to anxiety, to pain, to the challenges of our daily life. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what three important parts of what research has informed us on symptom reduction, biological markers in the body, and neuroplasticity. And again, Dr. Petrosian and Dr. Diaz are way more qualified to talk to you about this, but I just want to introduce this. Again, this is an introduction just to talk to you about what research has and how research has informed us and informs you and I in our own daily practice. So there have been a lot has been done on the improvement of symptoms. And usually the measures that they use are self-report scales. So people are talking about their self-report of anxiety, depression, pain, those kinds of things. And the improvements have been noted when applying mindfulness to both physical and emotional and mental conditions. There have been reduced anxiety and depression. There's been improvement in psychosocial outcomes, proven, evidence-based. And there's improvement in quality of life outcomes, particularly like in the changes in the perception of pain. Really powerful, powerful things. You know, it's not just kind of zenning out, which people do. It's not about that. It's about really, we'll talk about this, that it's really about rewiring in many ways our brain and how our brain can be used as a friend. And mindfulness and biological markers, that there's a myriad of studies showing the impact on the body, particularly, and I know the cortisol, the stress hormone. Many, many studies have been done showing the impact on cortisol measures in those with high stress levels. There's also been studies, the impact of immunological markers, such as an increase in antibody titers. And there's one study where they did prior to the pandemic with a flu vaccine and show that those who had a mindfulness practice had higher titers. And the cellular changes, such as positive changes to the rates of cellular aging, that this mindfulness can actually impact on a cellular level. It's hard to refute the science behind, and it's hard to ignore the power of the science behind mindfulness. And another, I think, the important and the third part of the research and the science behind mindfulness is that the brain's ability to change, the neuroplasticity, which is the brain's ability to change in response to life circumstances. which is really what we do when we bring mindfulness and awareness to our everyday life. It's the brain's capacity to rewire, that it can learn new things and change from that learning. And something as simple with the practice of mindfulness and awareness can change how our minds are wired. That the brain changes as a result of engaging in mindfulness practice. There was the quote is really a quote from a book that I cited at the end, that the cells that fire together wire together, that mindfulness has been shown through science to be a powerful exercise for producing structural changes in the brain that can impact mood, the perception of pain, and it really can strengthen the feel-good circuitry of the brain. And the feel-good may not be like the happiness circuitry. I feel sometimes happiness might be a little overrated, but what the goal, at least my goal, is a sense of well-being, right? A sense of well-being, that all is well, all is well. So what does mindfulness do for those of us who practice it? And I'm hoping those of you who practice it will continue to practice it, and those who, this might be an introduction and the invitation. So the benefits of mindfulness in this slide talks about the psychological, the cognitive, and the physical. And again, in some ways, it's a summary of the science of what are the outcomes of having a mindfulness or an on-purpose awareness practice. There can be increased happiness or well-being, increased compassion. Self-compassion is where I feel like it starts, and then when we experience self-compassion, it gets shared. It gets shared on purpose, or maybe even not on purpose. That there's increase in life satisfaction, relationships change, the quality changes, the satisfaction in work and whatever we're doing in our daily lives. With mindfulness and awareness, there's an increase in a sense of meaning. I mean, we really get to slow things down, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But there's often decreased stress, decreased depression, and decreased anxiety as a result of a mindfulness practice. That cognitively, we can increase our attention. We talked about the importance in terms of the process of memory. If we attend, we really are attending and paying better attention, which affects our memory, and oftentimes can increase our creativity and our innovation. It reduces our mind wandering, that mindfulness. I'm imagining that as we apply this on-purpose awareness, that full mind, there starts to be spaces in between all that clutter, that mental clutter, right? Our mind, there's a reduction in mind wandering, an increase in problem solving, which I think is part of the people that I have had the chance to work with and witness, that when they make changes in their lives as a result of awareness, and increased test scores. The physical part is that we talked about this, but the improvement in immune function, reduced hypertension, decreased chronic pain, enhanced epigenetic regulation, cardiovascular factors are improved, levels of cortisol change, as we mentioned, better sleep quality, cortical thickening, and improved neural integration. It can make a big impact in what we're doing and how we're living our lives. And who, particularly in this time, doesn't want that? Who living with symptoms that fluctuate and come and go, that we are out of control, couldn't benefit from having more, I hesitate to say more control, but tools that they can be applied that can improve the quality of our lives. So when I think about mindfulness in Parkinson's disease, or PD, there are really powerful outcomes in going from a mindful state to a mindful state with PD. I think that it really centers on that Parkinson's disease does not have to define your experience of daily living. What might come up as a result of Parkinson's disease, some of the symptomatology, for example, some of the sleep changes, some of the mood changes, does not have to define your daily living experience. That Parkinson's disease can be an informer of your daily living and how you provide care to yourself. And I'm going to talk a little bit in a call and response, or rather than be harsh, look at what's going on as needing attention, something that is arising that might need attention. which impacts your daily living and self-care and how you approach that. That it really informs, that it's informed, that this awareness is informed and patient with what the day brings. So when we have awareness, we can live in an informed way, patient with ourselves, patient with our body, patient with circumstances when we bring awareness. And it teaches us how to relate to our experiences differently. So the problem that we might identify becomes a point of relation. How do I relate with this now? If I bring awareness, I can change how I relate. So it becomes a relational. And then it's more about it's less about how I react to what's happening, but how do I respond to what's happening? And when we relate differently, things can change. Very powerful. So I talked a little bit about that. My own meditation teacher just this week gave us the idea of a call and response in terms of how we might be thinking or how our bodies might be feeling. I mean, awareness is really powerful because it does change, like I talked about, the relationship to how we think and how we feel. And it really is grounding. But we also become very responsive to ourselves, responsive to what's going on, which is really a rich way to live, you know? And they say one of the most important things we can do for anyone in our circle is to listen deeply. And I think awareness gives us the opportunity, or is the invitation for us to listen deeply to ourselves, to what we're going through, whether it's sleep changes, anxiety and depression, tremors, some of the other non-motor symptoms that can be so frustrating. It gives us an opportunity to enter into relationship with ourselves. So when an issue arises during the day, we can see our bodies as needing to be attended to versus what's wrong, what's happening, wait a minute, you know, we can kind of slow down, bring awareness, you know, what's going on, what does my body, what needs to be attended to. So I'll bring a kind of a frivolous example. But if I'm sitting in meditation and I start having pain, I don't think to myself, I might think, oh, what's wrong? But then I think, oh, wait a minute, what's happening? And I bring compassion and I say, oh, is there a way I can shift that I can be more comfortable? Do you know what I'm saying? Like it's that kind of attention, like this call and response. What is my body? What is my thinking asking of me? And I remember what I wanted to say. So I want to talk about this because so many times I talk to people about meditating and using meditation, and it's something that people have a really hard time with, and I completely understand. I think the notion is that in meditation, or even I'll talk about awareness, that we are to be thought free, that we're going to be pain free, that we're going to be like it's suddenly there will be, you know, our minds. They've done studies that we think about 6,700 thoughts a day. Like we're just pelted. Our mind is meant to think. Our brain is meant to think, to problem solve, to go through all this, right? It's meant to. And in any practice of awareness, it's really about, and we'll talk about this, is about slowing things down, not eliminating it. That's too lofty. It's about slowing down and developing a different relationship, like we're talking about now. So we can see our bodies as something comes up, something happens, as needing attention rather than something being wrong. When we do that, when we bring this kind of kindness to ourselves without judgment, you know, like living in the past, you know, like that one slide, like if I had only, why didn't I? What's wrong with me? I mean, oftentimes these are kind of the way that we think about things that happen to us during the day. But if we bring kindness and we stay in the present moment about what's going on, it can be a different outcome. And no future tripping, like what's happening, what's coming up, things are progressing. I can't do this. Will I ever get a good night's sleep again? Maybe I'll never sleep, never have a good night's sleep again. Like those kinds of ways that we talk to ourselves can be really detrimental to how we have, to our opportunity to change what's going on and our relationship to it, our relationship to ourselves. So if things come up, I believe that it's an opportunity to think about it as what needs to be attended to. You know, do we need to take a break? Do we need to take some breaths? Am I afraid that something's happening and I'm fear-based? Do I call a friend to get reassurance? You know, like my example is, you know, I'm having a really crummy day. And rather than it inform my whole life experience, I stop and I think, am I hungry? Am I angry? Am I lonely? Oh, I'm tired. I've really been burning the candles at both ends for days. I need to stop. I need to get some rest. Maybe I'll feel different tomorrow. Kind of responding rather than reacting. Tara Brach, I'm sure many of you have heard, who is very, very prominent leader in the mindfulness movement, has this really great acronym called RAIN, and it's something that I'll review and introduce you to, and encourage you that if you're interested, if you have already seen her work and practiced this acronym, the power of it to, in that moment when we're attending to ourselves, to use the acronym RAIN to recognize what's happening. The A of RAIN is allow the experience to be there just as it is, kind of like Jon Kabat-Zinn said, just let it be, just let it be. Investigate what's going on with interest and care. That's that how. That's the important part, like what's going on, not with the hammer, not with the running shoes, but with care and compassion for ourselves. And then the N is nurturing ourselves. Sometimes, they talk about, I've been instructed even, to bring my hand to my heart, to my chest. They're there. Sometimes they're there. Sometimes we need just very simple reassurance from ourselves to nurture with self-compassion. It's a tremendously powerful acronym. And I invite you to, you can Google Tara, and she has YouTubes and websites and all kinds of things that you can delve into. It's a really powerful method of awareness and mindfulness. So some of the examples that I've seen in my own practice are people who, with Parkinson's disease, who struggle with sleep, and the idea that we can stop and pause and think about it rather than the freight train that runs with our mind about all the fears, about what did we do, what didn't we do, what could we do differently, like kind of that approach would be to slow down, to bring awareness, like, so wait a minute, I'm not sleeping. And I've seen this done by people in the gentlest of way possible, looking at sleep, getting an idea of when I sleep, if I have trouble sleeping, is it consistent? Like just stopping, kind of that idea of if we stop and bring awareness, can we also bring gentle problem solving, What is my body asking for? Oh, am I napping during the day? Do I take rests and then that prevents me? Oh, wait a minute. Am I like watching TV really late? Am I not practicing good sleep hygiene? Bringing those things with an awareness, with a gentle awareness, a kind of problem solving through. Maybe even, do I use a meditation app at night to help me to sleep? Do I plug in and try to switch mindful, F-U-L-L, to mindful and really relax and attend to myself rather than expecting that I'm going to be sleeping immediately? I'm going to take some time, attend to my body. Apply, really practice good sleep hygiene, just for an example. And then if there's any residual, to bring that to Dr. Petrosi and Dr. Diaz to help in partnership, you're not alone. And another good example is anxiety and tremors. Like, what is my body asking me? How can I do things differently? And I've heard so many people using breath work when they have tremors during the day that seemingly sometimes come out of nowhere. They're getting very, very distressed about, and really pausing and thinking, okay, what is it about my situation? And I've heard people that have used awareness and used mindfulness and have found out that when they look at it, when they attend, when they stop, when they start breathing, when they breathe into it and really relax, that the tremors can stop. And then when they're not reactive and fearful or frustrated, they're able to say, oh, you know what? I noticed that I had a doctor's appointment and I didn't take the time I needed to get there. I was running late and I was super anxious and pressured. And so the next time when I go to a doctor's, or next time I have an appointment, I'm going to make sure that I take the time on purpose awareness, and plan things out differently. And it really made a difference. I mean, really powerfully made a difference. And one of the things that I hear over and over again is the medication management and getting that right with meals. And it can be so frustrating, and people can just feel it as such a failure when they're trying to get it right, or if they forget. And I think my hunch is that Dr. Diaz and Dr. Petrosian would be much more forgiving in terms of how they frame than we ourselves bring to these situations, and can really come down hard. What's wrong? Why can't I? This is so important, but, noticing and saying things, kind of stopping and bringing awareness, particularly if you're hearing yourself and you're aware of your thoughts. Can I start again? Do I have a care partner or someone that can help me with this? Can I not be hard on myself if I miss this, or if I'm having a hard time? Can I turn to my team and say, you know what? I'm having a really hard time. Can you help me look at this differently? Is there anything we can do? I think there's much more flexibility in our lives when we use awareness and mindfulness than when we think that we're all on our own and we have to really kind of muscle through. I think that can be a real detriment. It can be really, really unfair when we're dealing with such a moving target with the symptoms, like symptoms like the frustration related to medication management, for example. I'm just trying to be I'm going to be mindful of the time, being aware of the time. So how to get started, or how to keep practicing with mindful awareness. So I think that we want to begin by bringing in awareness and attention into our day, who we are. So let's explore how to get started. So I feel like getting started with awareness. I talked a little bit about that. Our mind is meant to think. Our mind, being mindful, is probably for many kind of at rest where we land. And I would invite one of my teachers actually last week, in terms of meditation practice, gave this directive. He talked about not emptying the mind, not being unaware of the thoughts, but to just slow down. And it was so helpful to me personally to, rather than there I am thinking again. And I do it myself. There's that recurring thought, that judgment. But the idea that I think, wait a minute, I need to slow down. And I think that when we talk about that mindful state, FULL, that when we look at the cartoon, that it's like, I'm assuming that there's lots of movement, that it's not just static, mindful, but that there's lots of movement that we can, in the course of a day, when we're feeling like we're getting swept away and overwhelmed, that we can slow things down easily by bringing awareness to the moment. Wait a minute, I'm revving up here. I'm getting anxious about my talk. I need to slow things down. Wait a minute, I feel my tremor. I need to slow things down. And so I was thinking about it in terms of slowing things down in my own mind. And I was thinking about the speed bumps that I can use to slow things down, going down the road. Don't we all think we're trying to get someplace and there's that speed bump, I've got to slow down. You don't want to ruin your car. You don't want to kind of fly over them. They really cause us to slow down, not to necessarily stop, although I love the idea of stillness with all of this. But the idea that we have speed bumps, that we can slow ourselves down. And so some of these speed bumps for mindfulness that we can use: pausing, focusing on the breath, the RAIN acronym, and also gratitude, which I didn't get up here, which I think is really, really powerful. I had a teacher of mine just last week talk about saying that you can't be challenged, you can't be disturbed and grateful at the same time. Gratitude can shift your whole perspective if you focus on just something that you're grateful for. It really can change things. So let's talk a little bit about mindfulness and focusing on the breath. I've got about 6 minutes. So let's just, if you'll indulge me, and maybe if you're anywhere that you can just take a moment, we can do a quick breath exercise. There are so many ways. I was talking with a group that I do, and we were talking about using the breath. And so I had asked them, what do you Like, what is there a technique that you use? And everybody has their own way of grounding in their breath, and some it's more elaborate, and some it can be just as simple as pausing. So if I'll just for just a few minutes, for those of you who do this on a regular basis, maybe you can do it with me and in your own style, but I'll just ask you to just take a moment, and you don't even have to close your eyes for this. I invite you to just if you're seated, just to get comfortable, take a moment. That's important in the pausing too. You're giving your body the signal that, oh, wait a minute, things are changing. We're changing course here just for a moment. And if you just want to take a minute and just do a quick body scan, right? Just think about from head to toe. It doesn't have, I would caution you not to rush through it. This is kind of an unfair exercise because it's going to be a teeny bit rush. But when you're on your own, I would invite you to just take a moment to go from your head to your eyes. Some of my instructors will say, oh, use soft eyes. Loosen your jaw. Become mindful of your shoulders. Are they here? Are they here? Do you feel tightness? Can you relax them? An idea of where your arms are in space, where they're attached, where they land. Are they landing in your lap? Are they landing in the arms of your chairs? What about your hands? My hands are a really big, important grounder for me. Kind of like a home base. We're going through your torso, your belly, your hips, your sit bones, your legs. How are your legs? Are they relaxed? Are they tense? Are you holding tension there? How about your feet? Your feet on the ground. Do you feel the ground beneath your feet? And then you can get in touch with your breath. Just simply breathing in and breathing out. Thich Nhat Hanh says, breathing and knowing you're breathing, right? Bringing the awareness to your breath. I'm breathing. I know I'm breathing. Another great thing is when you breathe in, breathe out a couple breaths longer than you normally would. I mean, the idea is that you are going to focus on your breath and pause on your breath with an awareness that you are basically, our body is breathing us, right? We're being breathed. We can't, don't change it. Just get an idea of it. Where do you feel it? At your nostril, the back of your nose, your chest, your belly? We all will feel our breath at different points. I love trying to watch how the body, the inhale and then the exhale, there's a pause that happens. I love trying to focus on that and catch that as I exhale with the intention of relaxing, right? And you can do that. It doesn't have to be long. It can be just a focus of a couple breaths or two. Just the idea of stopping, of using that as a speed bump, of getting the reaction time. It becomes responding rather than reacting. It's bringing awareness in. It's taking a moment to be grounded, to find a home base. Another mindfulness, maybe we can, I'll move on just in time. And if any of you, I'll have my email. If any of you want to talk about this offline, I'm really happy to. So it's something that has personally changed my life, and I'm happy to share and to talk about different processes. But then another mindfulness is 2 feet, 1 breath. And again, it's like sitting, giving your body like, okay, wait a minute, here's the speed bump. We're going to slow down. Feel 1 foot, could be your left foot, feel it on the ground. Feel the other foot, right foot, feel where that is in space. Where is it? Taking a deep breath and being aware that you're breathing, and repeat that. And it can be done during the day. It helps us remember that we live in our bodies. And if we think back on that chart in terms of the past, the present, and the future, our bodies are in the absolute presence. When we're connected to our bodies, we're connected to the present. It's really very powerful. So our breathing helps us do that. Become mindful to bring awareness. It's a grounding. And there's also another I hate to say exercise or techniques, but another process that we can do is called the 3 Ps, that we can pause, take a moment, single breath, let go of the planning of the tasks, things that might be dogging you. Notice that moment. Like right now, there's clearly some work being done in apartments. I'm aware that there's workmen, that they're working in their livelihood. Like really, like you can be aware, to be present, be aware of what's happening. Take a moment with your body. Notice your thoughts. Feel what's going on. I'm a little annoyed. I'm wondering if that's irritating to all of you. Teeny bit irritating to me, but I'm going to try to let it be, without trying to change what's going on. This is how it is. This is what's happening. And then proceed using kindness and patience. Bring compassion to whatever needs your attention at the moment. It's really about what needs our attention. So when we're stressed and feeling overwhelmed, mindfulness can come in, particularly with a gratitude practice. And again, I spoke about that briefly already, that how powerful that is. It can be, how grateful, just whatever comes up, how grateful that the sun is out today. It's really wonderful. No clouds today. It could be a people, places, things that you're grateful for. Very powerful. So mindfulness, it really is all about the practice, and it really is a practice. It's not something that one can listen to today and then give up tomorrow. And it doesn't have to be, I would ideally be every day, but it's a practice to be implemented, to bring in your bag, your gym bag, if you so to speak. It's about coming back with devotion, really, for yourself, with gentle attention. It's not only about the what of attention, of mindfulness, of attention on purpose, awareness, but how one does it. It can be so powerful. It's about being in the present moment. And as Ram Dass would say, be here now. Be here now. It's very, very powerful. So I'd like to bring in the jolt, at just one little thing that we can do. And so this is an invitation to pick one thing, something that you might do every day as a way of kind of developing that mindfulness, awareness on purpose muscle, right? And it might be showering or eating or brushing your teeth or driving or, I was even thinking if you're texting, take a time to notice before you text that next text or in the morning. They talk a lot about using the shower as an opportunity because it's so, there's a lot of senses involved. But, what sounds are you hearing? What physical sensations are you feeling? Where is your mind going? I think a lot in the shower. Perhaps my invitation today is to think less in the shower, be more aware of how lucky we are to have running water, how lucky that we are to have, grateful that we are to have warm or hot running water. What does it feel like to have that be cleaned by that beautiful water? Things like that. Just taking a moment. So, in conclusion, Jon Kabat-Zinn, I was just looking for quotes, and I love this. He says, "The little things, the little moments, they aren't little," which is really moving to me because they're not. The little things really are not so little. They really can become not necessarily the big things, but the powerful moments. The opportunity that we have to say yes to an invitation to improve the quality of our life, to not be defined by Parkinson's disease, for example, and some of the challenges, but to be informed by what our body is telling us so that we can be, rather than reactive, we can be responsive to ourselves with generosity and compassion and kindness. So some of the resources, YouTube is a fantastic resource for mindfulness. You can just put in mindfulness in there, and I'm happy to individual guidance if you like. There are apps, Insight Meditation or Headspace. I hear some of the people I work with love that. There's also 10% Happier, which gets high marks. Jon Kabat-Zinn, who was a microbiologist and really the father of this mindful-based stress reduction and kind of some of this movement here in the United States, wrote this book called Full Catastrophe Living, which is really wonderful. You can listen to that on Audible or on tape from the library. It's really, you can just listen if concentration is an issue. And then Insight LA is a local meditation. They have really wonderful offerings. So I encourage and yeah, to explore. So, metta is a practice. It's a loving kindness practice. And so I'd like to offer a loving kindness in closing to all of you and with you, really. So there's 4 components to metta. It's loving kindness, compassion, appreciative joy, and equanimity. It's kind of these 4 pillars to really metta, I guess loosely is love or high regard. So my metta offering to all of you is, may all beings, including this one, be safe, free from internal and external harm. May all beings, including this one, be patient and open-hearted with themselves and others. May all beings, including this one, experience well-being, health, and happiness. And may all beings, including this one, live life with ease. I wish this wholeheartedly for all of you. I wish for you finding your own daily awareness of bringing the power of self-compassion to your everyday lives. This is the references that I use. It's a clinical guide written by Christiane Wolf, who's actually a teacher of mine. And I want to thank you all for being here, for your attention to this programming. I love this with the Dalai Lama. He writes, "What is love? Love is the absence of judgment." So this is my information. Best to reach me by email. And I'm delighted to be here, to have spent this hour with you. And I look forward. I don't know if we have time for questions or, oops, we're over. But if anyone has questions, I'm available by email and would be happy to entertain questions or shared experience.
Thank you so much, Sheila. That was amazing. I don't see any questions from any of our participants today. And I was going to ask one question myself, which was, where do you think, or do you ever recommend journaling, like joy journaling or gratitude journaling? Do you think that fits in at all in a mindfulness practice? And could you speak to that?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that when we're talking about practicing this, and it really is just about a practice, that you want to do it consistently. And a joy journal or a gratitude journal is such a fantastic way, whether you do it in the evening. I would recommend it in the morning to get you started and get that really broad focus of awareness, of gratitude, and really joy to start it out. It would be amazing. In fact, I would invite you, and I'd almost challenge you, not take it in the gentlest way, to keep for the next 3 days, just write on a sticky note. I don't even have a sticky note here. You can write on a sticky note 3 things that you're grateful for. At first, it might be hard, but I think it is really powerful. Thank you, Dr. Petrosian, for bringing that up. It is a really powerful tool, really powerful.
Thank you. Again, I really want to second everything that you've said about the power that mindfulness and these types of practices can have in Parkinson's disease. I'm just going to share one little anecdote and then I'll let everyone go. I had a patient who started a mindfulness practice and he had tremor predominant Parkinson's disease. And it wasn't necessarily that he had less tremor, although he did. What happened was then when he would get tremor, it wouldn't be as devastating to him. It wouldn't be a constant reminder of the Parkinson's. He was able to accept the tremor when it would come in a more neutral way. And that in and of itself made him have less tremor. So it really helped him in a significant way, not just actually reducing tremor, but changing his mindset and his reaction to the tremor. So I wanted to add that into what you were saying earlier about the tremor. Thank you again. We had a question about when this webinar will be online. We apologize. We know that there's sort of a delay in our webinars getting posted online. We're following up on that to find out if there's a way we can streamline that process. So we'll work on that, but eventually we'll make it to our website, pacificneuro.org. That's pacificneuro.org. And it's up to Sheila if she wants to share her slides, that is her choice if she wants to do that. So I'll defer to her.
Happy to.
You can email her directly for that. And thank you again. And we'll see you all. I believe our next session is going to be the week after the first Monday, because, hold on, let me just look at my calendar. Yes, the first Monday of September is Labor Day. So we're going to be, 1 week later than normal. It's going to be the 13th instead of on the 6th. And let me see, Natalie, do you know who's speaking? I forgot to look that up before we started today.
No, I don't have my schedule in front of me, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember where I've saved our schedule. I'm in a different place right now. Oh, here we go. I found it. Hold on, let's see. September is going to be me. Well, there you go. And I will be talking about cognitive issues with Parkinson's disease. So I hope I bring some mindfulness to my preparation. And we'll see you all on the 13th. Again, not on Labor Day, but the week following, the Monday following. All right, guys. Everybody have a wonderful rest of your day and take care.